Oh man, you can't make it up.
You really can't.
All right, I'm assuming we're live. Let me tweet this good stuff out real quick for this barn burner.
Plow that mac and cheese a little too fast there, fella.
Yeah, man.
Jealous.
Here we go. All right, here we go. Welcome. Glad to have you with us, Dave Lochran, Ben Rasa, Andrew Barron, three fellas talking football. And we have got ourselves a true barn burner about to kick off tonight between the Jacksonville Jaguars and the Tennessee Titans in Tennessee. They're 5-point favorites. Boys, this game has a robust 37.5-point total. What is there? Let me start it off like this. What is there not to like about this game?
That's a good question. This is in my normally I like games like this. I don't like
you do.
Games. The Jaguars are kind of annoying, but yeah, I like games like this because I find it interesting. You know, everyone thinks it's a given that it's going to be 13-10. Like, yeah, maybe, but sometimes these games get sneaky. I think that adds to excitement. I don't know.
No one can touch each other. Like, it's on the quarterbacks and whatever. Kessler's.
Well, another thing too is last week Ben was the most spot on with Cowboys defense, but what made it interesting, I was pretty high on the Saints defense. I know Andrew had some love for them too. The point here is that we both had interest in defenses on a slate or in a game where everyone was talking about how it's going to go over the total. It's going to be, a super high scoring game without actually considering the fact that, Dallas does have a good defense. Drew Brees isn't at home. Maybe it's possible. Maybe because the NFL has so much parity, Ben, maybe it's just possible that this game does stay low scoring. And maybe it's possible today that we see some points. It's that simple.
Yeah, no, it really is. Obviously, it's an ugly game. I mean, the quarterbacks, Cody Kessler, not exactly. It's hard to imagine him, looking too good. But at the same time, this is Showdown, and to break it down for that, someone is going to be in this optimal lineup. I know it seems like there's only a couple good plays, and then it's like, oh, you got the kickers and the defenses, which I get. We're obviously going to get to all of that. One of these Jags receivers, one of these Titans skill positions is going to be in these lineups for sure, and we're just going to have to try to figure out who.
I think so too. Ben or Andrew, are you loading up on any defenses, kickers tonight? Obviously, of any Thursday night football game this season, this one certainly feels like it trumps them all in terms of not picking on skill players and trying to go elsewhere. But that also seems like it's going to be a pretty popular strategy.
Yeah, I mean, I've got them sprinkled in. I'm heavier on the Titans than the Jags. Jags are a good defense, but the Titans' offense is much better. So, like, it's just kind of I'd rather go with that because the offenses are given every advantage in the sort of modern NFL. And Jacksonville's, like, obviously not the defense it was last year. It's pretty good, but it's not, like, world-beating. Mariota's had a really good season. Like, I think the Titans have, like, a better chance. So we'll see how it goes. I do have a fair amount of Titans defense, but yeah, I'm not like overly. I have a hard time with these slates for Showdown because I find it much harder to tell the story with the defense and the kickers, and like where is the proper correlation coming from, right? If it's low scoring enough that the kickers are going to be optimal, like you still got to play some skill position players. Which ones is it? Like the quarterbacks obviously get hurt the most by the kickers, but there's a lot of different. There's just more sort of options to build on these, which isn't necessarily a good thing because I think that in some of the higher scoring games, if you find your decent guys, like Travis Benjamin last Sunday night, like that was my best showdown of the year because that guy was only 14% owned, basically because Tyrell Williams was active and he was $200, and like the whole slate opened up after that, and he wasn't super popular, so. Yeah, I don't know. We'll see how it goes, but yeah, defensive kickers sprinkled in. I certainly have more than usual, but I imagine I'm under the field on the kickers at least.
What about you, Ben? Above, under, gonna presumably match the field on kickers and defense. I want to start. We never start here when it comes to our show every Thursday, but I feel like it only makes sense to start here tonight because that's what everyone's talking about.
Yeah, no, that's kind of what we have to do on a slate like this. I obviously have elevated levels. I have a good amount of each defense. I do think that they can get after it, but at the same time, I'm with Andrew. I find these slates, particularly when it's a lot of the stories legitimately lead to leaving not a couple dollars on the table, thousands upon thousands. Like I know that can work. It's just, it really is tough to tell a story where you're just like, okay, Mariota and Fournette, like I don't want to use them. And then it's like, well, now I have 8,000 left. And it's like, who's going to have more points tonight? Lambo or Fournette? Like you can make those swaps and it just feels weird to leave guys like that out. But that is sometimes what you have to do, especially if you're building a lot of lineups.
And Cruncher is brutal to use on these slates too. Like at least when there's a big barn burner, you can say like, if quarterback is captain, give me 3 receiving options, or 3 running back, wide receiver, or tight end with this, and like do the onslaught. But it's like when you're doing defense and RB1 is like a decent correlation, but it's not like you want to lock that in for every time you use it. So it makes it trickier.
So talk to me about some of the stories that we're going to be penning today. Obviously, you have Leonard Fournette at the top, $12,000 on DraftKings. Marcus Mariota just beneath him at 10-4. We've got ourselves old Cody Kessler, $9,000. Yeah, that's right, $9,000 Cody Kessler. Corey Davis, Deion Lewis, Derrick Henry, Dede Westbrook, TJ Yeldon. I mean, yeah, there are some names, Andrew. There are some names. Some guys that have had some decent performances this year. You got your Dante Moncriefs and such. You have your Taiwan Taylors coming off a 100-yard game where I saw only 3 receptions. But I'm just throwing names out here on players that will, to some extent, have ownership tonight, because that is what happens, and it doesn't really matter who you are. O'Shaughnessy might have some ownership, because who knows, and that's just the way it goes here, man. And I'm curious to know what type of stories you're writing over there for tonight.
Yeah, A. Ferkser and the gang. There's some gross ones in here. No, it's funny. Before the show, I was talking to my buddy Jack, and just it was like, all right, well, it seems like you kind of got to jam in Leonard Fournette. It's like, yeah, the guy who's finished 3 games this year like is the automatic lock. Right. But that's kind of what we're stuck with. I think Fournette is, he's the best play. Kessler is one of those guys. He's not good under pressure. Tennessee doesn't generate a ton of pressure, but he's also got kind of a noodle arm. So I think you're going to see a lot of dump offs to Fournette. So there's a lot of different ways Fournette can work, because not only if the Jags come out and smash, then he should be the one doing that. If Mariota screws up and they give up an early lead, should be a good script for Fournette. But he also, I think, will get, if they start getting blown out, like he should be able to catch a lot of dump offs as well. I do think you mentioned Yeldon. That's a little bit sneaky, because he's another guy that's very good pass catcher, obviously.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I think Fournette's the obvious play. I like a fair amount of. I have some Jaguars defense with Titans onslaughts against it, hoping that with Fournette leading that, hoping that, hey, Fournette and the Jaguars defense get out to a big start. They're down. The Titans are down a couple touchdowns, and Mariota's just launching the ball all over the place. Got a few of those. Same way the other way. I actually have a lineup with that where it's like Titans defense and running backs with a Jaguars onslaught with Bortles, hoping that Kessler is just so awful that like they bench him. I don't think it's out of the question. It's bad. I would not normally do that. It's not like I had any Mark Sanchez last week when Colt McCoy died, but it's just a really gross slate, and I think there's weird stuff like that is viable. Cody Kessler stinks, so wouldn't be crazy to see him get benched here.
Yeah, my thing, Ben, is if the Jaguars score, it really does feel like there's a 70% chance that it's going to be Leonard Fournette. I mean, you just look at the production or lack thereof in recent weeks, and they scored 3 touchdowns against Buffalo, he had 2 of them. 16 points. He had 6 of them against Pittsburgh. It's just in games where their offense is anemic, and then against Indy, he had 2 of their 3 touchdowns as well. So in games where they're terrible offensively, Leonard Fournette still always seems to be the one to at least get something. And his volume is just ridiculously high on a team that's not going to be able to move the ball downfield with the aerial attack.
Yeah, I mean, the volume is so polarizing in a situation like this. It's hard to ignore. Even if he's not effective, there's a very real chance he's just in the optimal lineup just because he got so much work.
He's very rarely effective anyway, or efficient. Yeah. He's very rarely efficient.
And their line is down more guys, too. Like, Norwell's out for the year now. Like, it's not pretty.
No. I do think, though, with Kessler in there in particular, he gets a little boost in the passing game. All the running backs do, because it's not a leap to say that he's dumping it off a lot, and that can really help. Just because, again, if you don't take Fournette, if Mariota isn't your captain, you're pretty much, picking whoever you want. And that makes it tough. I have a ton of Mariota. It's not even that I love him. I just think of all the guys, he's in the safest position. He's at home. Obviously, he's the quarterback. He can run. I think just on raw points, that's where I started when I was building, quote-unquote, optimally. And then I just mixed and matched with his weapons, the Deion Lewis's of the world. The guy who I think is most interesting on the slate is Corey Davis, just because, it's him and Ramsey. I don't know how many people shy away from him. I kind of did for the most part. But he's one of the kind of, if you get that situation right, you're going to be at a huge advantage.
Yeah. Is there anyone that's been more disappointing recently than Deion Lewis? I mean, he's just been an abomination. I'm assuming that's Andrew riding motorcycles in his place.
It's
been a long day for everyone. We're all a little tilted here, but no, the maintenance guys showed up at my apartment 20 minutes before the show started to do this shit. So sorry, everyone.
What is he doing?
He's fixing a pipe underneath. My downstairs neighbor had a leak the other night. She's like, "Is everything okay with your?" It wasn't any of my stuff. It looked like, but it had flooded her kitchen. So it's probably a pipe in between the floors. Apparently, it's the pipe from my hot water heater to my sink that goes underneath the floor that was leaking onto her place. So the maintenance guy comes up unannounced, 20 minutes before the show, says, "Can I come in and shut your hot water heater off?" And I'm just kind of like, so I'm gonna go fix the pipe and then I'll be back and turn it on. I didn't get to really mention the whole I have a work call. That's pretty, but whatever.
All right. Well, whatever. If you have to mute yourself, you can mute yourself as he keeps grinding along there. But I will ask you though, with Deion Lewis, what are we doing with him? He has been somebody that Ben and I on the game plan, I think several Sunday mornings in a row, have been like, all right, Deion Lewis, 4,400, looking good, really solid matchup. He can't burn us here. 2 Derrick Henry touchdowns later, or a massive blowout. Deion Lewis has just been a travesty.
Yeah, it's Deion Lewis and Tevin Coleman who have been the leaders for me as far as most money lost on this season. It's been not pretty, but I'm going back to the well. I don't see how you can't. The Jaguars run the same kind of defense that Seattle and Atlanta runs. It allows underneath targets. It also allows quarterbacks are rushing against them. Part of that I think is because they have Luck, Watson, and Mariota, who are all 3 really good running quarterbacks in their division, but they give up a lot of yards to quarterbacks on the ground. And yeah, I just think the dump offs and stuff like that, they're still tough downfield. They still have a good defensive line. It's hard to just straight run on them. So I think you're going to have to do sort of weird stuff, and I think it seems like a Deion Lewis game to me. I've said that a lot this year, but
it seems like a Deion Lewis game to me too, Andrew, and it makes me feel pretty awful about myself. Ben, is it a Deion Lewis game to you? And if so, can we just end the show now and I'll throw my money away?
Yeah, no, all of the above. It's hard to. I continuously have a problem with guys like Derrick Henry, LeGarrette Blount, Adrian Peterson is another one where it's just like you're banking on the touchdowns, and I will perpetually get sucked into a guy like Dion Lewis who's out snapping him, who has the receiving upside. It never works, as we've all said in our own way, that Dion Lewis has been really disappointing, but I'm not going to. I mean, of course, I have a little Derrick Henry, but it's far less, just because the chances that Derrick Henry has 10 carries for 42 yards and that's it is so detrimental to your team. Whereas Dion Lewis, you would think if he gets 5 or 6 targets, it really raises that floor. And that's what I'm buying into against this type of defense.
Yeah, I'm quote unquote buying into it as well, but that's not saying much. Look, let me ask you this. Do you think Dion Lewis in the captain spot makes sense?
I have no problem with that. To tell you the truth, I think Derrick Henry in the captain spot makes sense. Where I played him, I put him in the captain spot when I played him, because the only way in my eyes he's useful is if he's falling in the end zone twice.
Yep. Yeah, he's totally touchdown dependent. That's a good point. So
it's like I either want mega exposure to him or nothing, in the sense of, if he gets it done, I probably want him in my captain spot. Dion Lewis I have a sliver of, but he's more of just kind of a staple of my lineups all around, just because I think you may need those raw points tonight.
How much Fournette and captain do you have?
I have far less than the majority of people. I think I have maybe like 10%, I want to say.
Around 10% in captain spot. And do you have some Fournette lineups where he's not in the captain spot but still in the lineup?
Oh, I have a ton of those. Yeah, I'm using him a lot. He's just not my captain on most teams.
So right now your primary captain is Mariota?
Yep.
Mariota. Interesting. Okay. And are you running back any defense kickers with that? Trying to get the story or unravel and everything. I know you already broke it down a bit, but trying to dig a little bit deeper for the viewers, because these showdown slates, it's only one game, but they can be tough to kind of digest. And so you got Mariota and then some Fournette, a lot of Lewis, even some Derrick Henry. But in those Mariota lineups where he's the captain, and then Andrew, we'll get your take on captains here. In those where Mariota is your captain, who do you find yourself pairing him mostly with throughout your 5 flex spots?
Honestly, it's Dion Lewis. And this goes back to what to do with Corey Davis. Normally, he would be the guy, but if they take that away, you have obviously Tajay Sharp and Tywan Taylor. I have a difficult time saying, one of these guys is clearly in a better position than the other. Didn't want to hitch my wagons there. I also have no problem, and I do have teams like this where it's just basically Mariota by himself. There's a defense in there, a kicker, and then a couple Jags. Because, it's very difficult to peg that where he's going. If Mariota has a good game, I don't know if that necessarily means any of the specific Titans have a good game along with him. Someone will, but which one is very hard to tell.
Yeah, Andrew, outside of Dion Lewis, who, maybe he blows up in the passing game. It's possible. This is a type of Jacksonville defense that could make that happen. But let's say it isn't Dion Lewis. And Corey Davis, let's say, has his hands full with Jalen Ramsey. Is there anybody here that does stand out to you? I know it's a very difficult question to answer, but do your best.
I wouldn't say stand out, no. But I am mixing and matching a number of other guys. I, too, have more Mariota in the captain spot than anybody else.
Okay.
But
I don't think that'll be very popular, by the way. I really don't.
I think Fournette will be the most popular.
For sure.
For sure. And he should be. Like, that's the optimal. But I'm with you. I think there's probably, I think Mariota might be like a third as much in the actual captain spot.
Right.
And he, like Ben was kind of just alluding to, like, you can play him naked more than other guys because he is like he's really, really fast. Like, he's a very good rushing quarterback. So, that is potentially, that's certainly something you want to look for. And with guys like that, they can get it done without their mates as often. I, too, like Dion Lewis the most, have the most of him paired with him. And I have a fair amount of, like, just because it's a showdown thing, I have a lot of, like, Mariota with Lewis and Taylor and Davis. Or Mariota with Lewis, Taylor, Furtzer, who's, like, doesn't play much, but when he does, like, they target him a lot. So, I don't know. There's just... Batson is not like a crazy play. I feel like we broke down. We had
the answer obviously means that Jonnu Smith will just catch a 70-yard touchdown immediately, like he always does. I assume you haven't done of him. He's the only guy you haven't mentioned, and that's what happens with this guy.
Yeah, I'm not paying $5,000 or whatever for Jonnu Smith. The guy averages like 4 air yards and 70 yards per game.
Yeah, just I have zero interest. I have zero interest in that. I'm not. Now, granted, here's where I would have interest in Jonnu Smith. You know how we've seen so many times on these showdown slates, a tight end has 2 targets. One of them's a 20-yard touchdown. The other one's a 30-yard reception. Or with Houston, I forget his name even, 2 targets, both touchdowns. That's okay, but that's when those guys are like $800 or $1,000. Jonnu Smith isn't exactly your dirt cheap tight end play.
No.
So, you know what I mean? That to me is plenty of reason not to go. Look, I'd rather go with Tajay Sharp and hope he gets me 6 or 7 targets.
Same.
You know what I mean? I'm not saying that Tajay Sharp is particularly good. We know that he isn't, but that doesn't take away from the fact that I still think I still would prefer, especially with full PPR, his potential 6 or 7 targets. He's seen 7. Look, over his last, look at this, 6 games. Ready? 9, 1, 3, 7, 0, 6. So might be 1, it might be 0, might be 9, might be 7. I'm willing to roll the dice on that, Ben.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's a weird slate in the sense that all the guys, you have the top tier, but take the Jonnu Smiths of the world. If they were all $200 on this slate, my builds wouldn't be any different. I would just have more money. Like, there's almost no lineups where the salary came into play where I was like, oh, I wanted Tajay Sharp, but I can't get to him. Like, it's a weird situation. It's almost a pick 'em, especially with me. I didn't use Fournette and the captain a ton. If you don't do that, it's kind
whatever
of just,
you want.
Exactly. You're just picking somewhat who you want in these lineups. So the price wasn't a factor on most of them. It was just, hey, I don't even care about, in terms of value. It's just raw points. That's kind of how you have to approach it.
Yeah. I mean, you're really doing whatever you want in a spot like that. I just don't see, I don't understand how, if you don't play Fournette in the captain spot, how you really have any restrictions, especially given that a lot of those lineups are maybe not, but I'm at least playing, some Titans defense, some kickers, because while it's not the sexy play, there's no question that yes, last week was 6-0. There's no question that this game can then turn into a game where it's just an absolute catastrophe and ends up at like 12-9.
No, this is a real situation. Normally, especially on main slates, on our show, on all the shows, we always hammer, you're targeting defenses, you want pressure, you want turnovers, you're looking for the pick 6. This game is ugly enough where there's a real chance you can target defense and say, you know what, they're going to hold them to 3 points. And the 7 points that you get might actually just be pertinent on its own. Obviously, you want turnovers, but I'm targeting both these defenses partly because I just think, honestly, giving me 8 to 10 might be good enough for where they're priced.
Yeah, because if they hold the other team to 3 points, that's killing all their fantasy production too. Yeah. It's not like there's other guys, like on a main slate, it's not good enough for a defense to hold a team to 3 points without doing other stuff, unless none of the defenses get it done. But like in a showdown slate, if the defense holds one of the teams to 3 points, then that whole team sucked.
Yep.
So
there's
absolutely
the defense is probably outscoring, barring a wide receiver who racks up catches, probably, and that's where you can see a showdown slate with a 7-point defense as part of the optimal, even though in theory that's not even a good performance.
Right. Because on a main slate there's 31 other teams or whatever, 25 other teams, but this one there's only one other team. So if a defense shuts down one, then great.
So in a roundabout way, coming back to you, Andrew, if you have Fournette in the captain spot, I know you talked about a lot of Mariota, but there are a lot of people watching this show that are going to have Fournette in the captain spot. I have a bunch with Fournette in the captain spot.
Yeah, me too.
I think it's a perfectly sound play. Last week, I didn't care what the ownership was. Ezekiel Elliott throwing a lot of Zeke in the captain spot just because I like knowing that a guy like Zeke gives you the ceiling but also the floor. And, you need the ceiling, but still, even in a low-scoring game, and I was predicting that game, we all were, to be relatively low-scoring, Zeke is still the type of guy that gets all the work he needs. And Fournette, as Ben pointed out, might not be efficient, but he can be effective.
Yeah.
And he's going to get every opportunity near the goal line if they get there. So that's what. So if you're going with your build with Fournette in the captain spot, we'll start here. You have Fournette in the captain spot, 18,000, right? 1.5 times 12K. You have 6,400 remaining. Is there anything that you did in terms of these lineups that felt like it fit better than something else? Like, were you doing Fournette with Lewis and then defense and kickers, or you know what I mean? Or are you running it back with this? So anything specific?
No, and Mariota's not a cheap captain either. Like, you do have to go down a little bit, whether it's with the kickers, because the defenses are not cheap. That's one thing that's worth noting here.
Right.
They're both around $6,000.
Mm-hmm.
But you can go down to the kickers. I think there isn't really a true punt. There is no one on my radar. I don't know about you guys. I have no one on my radar at the $200, $400, $800 range. The lowest I'm willing to go is Keelan Cole and Batson. And I think Cole actually does make a fair amount of sense. Malcolm Butler and Adoree Jackson are like good talents, but they are full on Russ Westbrook, Rondo types, where they are jumping the passing lane and actually playing bad defense despite putting up big defensive numbers. Like, they're both of them are bottom 10 in the league in yards per cover snap. Like, they get burned and they fall asleep on plays. And Kessler has no arm, but the Titans don't have a pass rush. So if one of them just like falls asleep on a play, like, there's room to throw down the field. And I don't know, Keelan Cole had a hugely high variant season last year. He's just been a disaster this year, but he had to play again last week. Same thing, Moncrief. I'm mixing and matching with all three of them, Moncrief and Dede as well, just because I think there will be some open shots at some point. Whether or not Kessler hits them, we'll see. But he's a fairly accurate guy. He just doesn't have much arm strength.
Keelan Cole was supposed to be, like, this year in seasonal drafts, Keelan Cole was the wide receiver that people were drafting first.
Yeah.
And you remember week 1 of the NFL season, Keelan Cole was like straight heavy chalk.
Yep.
I didn't understand why. They got plenty of bodies there, plenty of mouths to feed. Moncrief's actually been the most reliable receiver on this team. Now, that's not saying
Cole also lit up the Pats in week 2. So that was his one game this year. But
yeah, and he had maybe the best catch of the entire season of any player.
Oh yeah.
Amazing.
Was that the one where
catch.
he caught it where he like held it against his ass? Or no,
it was down the sideline, one hand. It was his left hand, but one hand and just full outstretched. It was a beautiful, beautiful catch. But you know what I'm talking about, Ben. That's long gone now. Long gone now. So it's gone. On the other side with Tennessee, Tyrod Taylor was out 3 games. So you saw Batson getting some work, but his snap count was cut in half last game.
Mm-hmm.
Tajay Sharp, here's the interesting thing, and this is why I mentioned Tajay Sharp. I'll go to you, Ben. Corey Davis is basically playing all of the snaps, right? 90+% of snaps now in 5 straight games. 96% in 2 straight. But then the guy that's playing the second most snaps is Tajay Sharp. And Tajay Sharp's playing between, 75 and 90% of snaps based on the week. So at least he's out there. And that's why I say it is possible that he could have 7, 8, or 9 targets, because at least he's on the field, and you got to be on the field to be able to produce.
Absolutely. And I can confirm that. Yeah, hot take. With Jalen Ramsey, that
was a John Madden type of take right there. You get what I'm saying.
That was like real professional radio stuff there, Laffy. That was like you could be on WFAN. Like, you got to be on the field to get targets.
You're damn right, dude.
With Jalen Ramsey, there is a real chance that Corey Davis is just not even that they can't get it to him, that they say, you know what, there's easier. Like exactly. We're gonna just let you take him out, and we'll work with what we have.
Absolutely.
Tajay Sharp, Tyrod Taylor, dare I say, Dion Lewis should be the beneficiary of that. So I'm with you. He's a UMass guy. I like him, obviously, but I have no problem mixing matching. The problem is with any of them, even Lewis included, I don't know if we can bank on the production. You spoke about the variance, especially with the receivers. So I didn't unload on any of those guys, but I have a healthy amount of the weapons around Mariota.
Yeah, there's extreme volatility, no question, but that's what you get on a showdown slate.
You have to embrace it. Yeah.
Right. This should be expected. So I'm not necessarily too concerned about taking risks here. It's just really, Andrew, which risks make the most sense. And I'll take the guy that's playing 70, 80, 90% of snaps. Like, to me, the pricing is kind of strange. D.D. Westbrook, is it worth it? Like, honestly, I guess the question, this is a good way to I think to phrase it. Of the wide receivers on both sides, I get that you could make an argument probably for anybody, but some of them just don't really seem worth it to even roll the dice on them. Yeah, maybe they have a 60-yard touchdown and then they're quiet for the rest of the game and they're in the winning lineup. But overall, Westbrook has been very quiet. If Cody Kessler at the helm, like you said, accurate, but not exactly someone that you can rely upon him to move the ball downfield and move the chains. I just feel that way with almost everyone in Jacksonville, not named Leonard Fournette.
Yeah, it's tough stuff. And the reason they're all $1,000 more than the secondary Tennessee guys is because they're probably going to get a shot or two. Like, their equity in the long one is more. It is. Because Jacksonville's really tough. Like, they cover well. It's still a very good defense. They cover well downfield. It's probably still the best cornerback duo in the league. I mean, I guess the Chicago guys at this point. But, yeah, I don't know. It's brutal. But the Jacksonville guys, I think Moncrief and Keelan Cole will both see at least one, like, long attempt. Whether or not that pays off, we'll see. I liked it better when it was $200 Justin Hunter at 0.9% owned from Ben Roethlisberger the other night. Then I'm going to like it when it's $6,800 D.D. or, whatever, $6,200 Dante Moncrief coming from Cody Kessler at 30% owned. But I still think just that upside is a lot higher there. So,
no question.
Did either of you guys use, because we've all talked, I don't have a lot of Fournette in the captain, but I have a ton. I'm sure you both have a ton. Did you pair Yeldon with him in lineups?
I have not, personally.
One that does that.
Okay. I have a few. Obviously,
Explain the thought process there.
There really isn't none. I mean, it's clearly
Showdown.
That truly is what it is. It's on a showdown like this, there's just not that many plays. I did that in the sense of this. If the game is really ugly, where points are at such a premium, fantasy points are at such a premium, there is a real chance that Yeldon is effective just by getting 5 targets, even if Fournette is in there doing his thing and scoring. So it's just like, you know what? I'll pair them up. No one is going to do, not no one, but the way you can leverage that, I have 6 guys that I think will all be popular on that team, but in the combination that they're in, pretty rare combo. So I think if the game is really ugly, that could be effective. But obviously, I'm using 2 running backs from the same team.
Mm-hmm.
Right, and that was actually a question from Eric in chat. Did you pull it from there, or were you just thinking of
No,
it?
I don't have chat open. Me and Eric, we're one with the universe.
Yeah, you and Eric were.
Look at that. He literally had asked the same thing. Lone Wolf says,
I love that name.
I know. Is there any chance the Jags get upset? Well, the Jags are 5-point dogs already. So maybe do you mean the Titans? Because if you mean the Titans, I think absolutely. And here's why.
Do people think the Jags are an underdog? I guess that's what I wonder a little bit. You know what I mean? This feels like one of those games that people like the Jags.
The Jags are an underdog.
No, I know.
They are.
The AFC South is just like, if you ask people, football people, like, quick, who's the best team in there, rank them, even record-wise, you would get a multitude of answers. Like Colts, the Jags, the Titans, and the Texans. Good luck really breaking that division. It's really odd where
you're
the teams are.
Right. No, you're absolutely right. It's really strange. It is. What was I going to say before we talked? Shit, now I can't remember. Oh, yeah, about the Jags getting upset. They're 5-point dogs. So what I do think, and either one of you can jump in here, I think it's very possible. He said Jags letdown. No, the Jags are 5-point dogs, man. I think there's a very good possibility.
That was my point.
Right, exactly. No, I get it. I think there's a very good possibility, though, that the Jags end up winning this game because if you look at the Tennessee Titans, right, if you look at their performance this year, and like Ben said, it's just a mess, and no one has any. You look at their performance this year, it's all over the map. They come back with the come from behind win against the Eagles. They win over the Jaguars 9-6. There's your field goal kicker game. They lose to the Dolphins. They beat the Texans. Okay, and then then they beat the Cowboys, who are playing well. They get crushed by the Colts. Before that, they crushed the Patriots.
Killed them.
Then they get crushed by the Texans, and then they edge out a last-minute win over the Jets. You cannot tell me that you have any confidence one way or another how this Titans team is going to produce because nobody does. There's not one team that's been as predictably unpredictable as the Titans this year.
Yes. No, absolutely. And this is why this is it extends to the DFS plays itself because they've been predictable on a macro level as a team and with the team itself where it's like, oh, they crushed them. Somehow none of their weapons were in that production. So they have very talented players on both sides of the ball, but very inconsistent players on both sides of the ball, which is going to lead to that. Yeah, they just don't have a true – and nothing wrong with this. They are finding ways to win games. They just even if you asked me, and I've seen obviously the Titans play a bunch, what do they really want to do? It's hard to answer that. Like sometimes I feel like it's pound the ball with Derrick Henry. Other times it's, use Mariota's speed, get him on the edge, use these weapons. Other times it looks like they don't want to do anything and it's just, they're just chilling out and relying on the defense. So it's just some teams in the league, what they want to do. You're not saying it's going to be effective, but it's easier to peg the production. These teams, obviously the Jags have their own problems, makes it difficult.
Yeah, it really does. By the way, the Chiefs signed Kelvin Benjamin. How about that?
Do you think he sees a snap this year?
What's that?
Do you think he sees another snap this year?
I have no idea. I think they might be a little worried about Sammy Watkins, though. I don't know.
I guess so.
Yeah. Those are polar opposite players, though, for like what they do.
Right, but I'm saying like guys like Chris Conley and what are they? Demetrius Harris. I don't even know who else they have. I can't even remember. But
those guys aren't. Kelvin Benjamin's a closer comp to Demetrius Harris than he is to Sammy Watkins because he is a tight end basically. Yeah, I mean, hey, I don't know, man. They signed him, but anyway, we've got 5 minutes to go here. Let's do what we always do and kind of put a bow on all this and come full circle. By the way, if you like the show, hit us with a thumbs up. And as we've talked about throughout the past couple weeks, it is the Awesemo 24 days of giveaways. And what that means is that now until, it's been going all week, until December 24th, Christmas Eve, us at Awesemo, are giving you, our loyal listeners and subscribers, it's showing you a token of our appreciation with free subscriptions each and every day going all the way up until the Christmas Eve, when we will do a random drawing for a premium all-access annual pass, everything for free for a full calendar year, everything behind paywall. And all you have to do is like the video and comment down below. You got to do it below, not in the chat, but down below. You can comment whatever you want. You could say, you guys suck. You could say, hey, great show. Thanks a lot. Prefer the latter. But you know what? It's up to you. You make your own decisions. I don't. We got one for tonight. Would you prefer, if you had to eat for a week straight, every meal, salmon or macaroni and cheese? Let us know.
No, I mean, if you want, fine. If you want, that's fair enough. But comment down below and let us know and hit us with a like. By the way, you can do this for any live stream that we do throughout the day, whether it be the early bird, Three Fellas Talking Football, Live Before Lock, the Deeper Dive, this Process Strategy Show, all of them. So you'll get entered as many times as you do it each day, and it's a random drawing each day leading up until Christmas Eve. Our appreciation to you guys. We do appreciate you a whole lot. So happy holidays, and this is our way of showing it. So let's keep it moving here, boys. A couple minutes to go. Captain spot the winner of tonight's showdown, the 200K. Who's in the captain spot, Ben?
I mean, I have to say, I'll do it like this. I've said Mariota. I think he's obvious. If I had to say a sleeper captain that no one really is going to be, D.D. Westbrook.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I have some D.D. Westbrook captain. Took a shot with one of the Jags receivers, but that's very aggressive.
Okay, I can dig it. What about you, Ben? Andrew, sorry.
Yeah, I mean, I'm the same. Mariota is my optimal, which I think is a little sneakier than the Fournette chalk, so I think that's that is a bit of a stand for me. If not that, I'll say Titans defense.
Okay, I can dig it. You know what? I'm going to say Tajay Sharp.
Ooh.
Why not? Maybe he has the 8-target game. Maybe Tajay Sharp, look, we all know he's not very good. Maybe he has himself a decent game. And it transpires into a tournament-winning game. Anything's possible. I mean, hell, it's highly unlikely, but anything can happen on a showdown slate. All right, Ben, score of this game. This should be fun. What's your score? What's your score prediction for tonight's just absolute going to be an offensive bloodbath between the Titans and Jaguars?
Yeah, this is bad. Honestly, I'm not going to go too outrageous. I'll say 17-13 Titans.
17-13 Titans. Okay. And 17-13. That's pretty fair. That sounds pretty reasonable, actually. I like that. I'm pretty close as well.
Jags cover barely, but pretty vanilla.
I like it. Andrew?
I mean, like we've been talking about all night, what Titans show up is who fucking knows. So like that's real trouble for me. I do think there's a path for the Titans to win like 31-17, but I kind of agree that the score is gonna and there's also a very real path for the Jaguars to just pound them on the ground and win 21-14 themselves. So I truly don't know, but I guess if I'm gonna go in that area, I'm going Ben's general direction and saying Titans 20-13.
What I want to know is, will you guys have any Cody Kessler lineups?
I have a couple, but none in the captain. I don't believe. Nothing crazy.
Okay.
I have a fair amount with Titans defense.
So it's kind of a just in case type of thing here.
I don't. I'll put it like this: if Cody Kessler ran one in tonight or had a big game, I would be in trouble. I don't want that to happen.
Okay.
So that just shows you where I'm at with this dude.
Right. All right. That makes enough sense to me. I will go. Let's say. I want to say Jacksonville upsets here. I feel like they got. I feel like they got off the schneid last week. Right. Just a terribly boring win, 6-0. I want to say Jacksonville puts some points on the board and wins this game 24-20.
Nice. We need one.
Yeah.
We always need a hot. I had to go on Cowboys.
One of us has to do it, right? One of us has to do it. That's right. Yeah. Anyway, any last thoughts, boys? We got about, let's see here.
7 seconds.
No time really at all. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We are locked. Good luck to everyone tonight. We'll see you back here next Thursday on Three Fellas Talking Football.